Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. All right, so generational trauma. It's that subject that's like, we don't like to talk about it. We don't like to think about it. We like to forget it. Yeah, that. Okay, so here we go. Generational trauma. Overcoming generational trauma isn't about breaking curses. Overcoming generational trauma is not about breaking curses. It's about giving voice to the story. It's about giving voice to the story. There was a time when I was a people pleaser. There was a time when I did everything I could not to be left. Growing up, I did not know my father till later in life. So the things that I needed, I did not receive. So therefore, I was looking outside of the home to receive these things. And it never worked. I found myself in a cycle of toxic, abusive relationships. And I thought it was normal. Because I did not want to be left. So I would do and put up with anything so that I would not be left. That's the old story. One day I was sitting in my room, literally, as the tears was rolling down my face, I was like, why me? And I heard so clearly, why not you? If it is to be, then it's up to me. You can change the story. It's up to you. I received help. I received coaching, counseling, right? I had to change that story. I had to look at that experience differently in order to have a different outcome, right? I kept having the same outcome because I was looking at it from this, I got to do all these things so they wouldn't leave me. I wasn't even loving myself, and I was attracting those people that had the same hurt I was hurting, like they had the same issues. Didn't even understand it. Only thing was changing was the person's name. It was the same person, just different name, right? And I got like, why am I on this cycle? Like, what is this? I want off, right? I had to do the work. I had to do the work, the personal development, the spiritual development, the coaching, I had to do the work because you are your own rescue. We say yes to everybody and everything else. But what about you? When will you say yes to you? When? That's my story. That's at least one of them. Okay, so there's addiction, there's abuse, there's toxic relationships. Our story is a recollection of events combined with meaning that we've attached to it. To these events, the stories we pass on are generational, deeply attached to the memory. Okay? Trauma causes a shift in our belief system. It changes the way we see ourselves, others, God. We see people for the worst. Not the best. We see them for the worst, right? Trauma manifests psychologically and biologically. Intergenerational trauma. So intergenerational trauma is trauma passed from grandmother to mother. That's from grandmother to mother. Something happened with the grandmother. She never processed it or dealt with it, didn't know how to, right? 'Cause a lot of times we don't know how to do these things. Not blaming them, not beating them up, but just understanding that they gave us the best they had at the time, okay? So that's trauma. That's intergenerational trauma. That's from the grandmother to the mother. Then we have transgenerational trauma. That affects the grandmother, the mother, and then the daughter. That's the grandmother, the mother, then the daughter. There's all different types of trauma, y'all. Psychological effects, the storytelling, and the memory. So these are four different ways trauma affects the memory. Have you ever had an experience and you like, I just can't even remember. So I just don't remember it. Certain parts I don't remember. That trauma does that. It does that. It affects your memory, right? So we have somatic memory. That is, it's a state of, what is right? And sometimes it blocks. It's like riding a bicycle. You remember how to ride the bicycle? Let me say this thing right. The bicycle is the trauma. It can block someone. It can sometimes block us from pulling together the basics. So it pulls. So what that does, it pulls the basic knowledge. Like you know it, but somehow you forgot it, right? So that's the somatic memory. That's one of the ways that trauma affects the one of the trauma effects of memory. Then we have episodic. That's our recall of events and experiences. We remember falling off the bike in front of a group of people. Trauma can shut down our autobiography memory. We remember certain things, not the sequence of events. Like, I just remember falling off my bike. That's it. Or either I remember people laughing at me. It's like whenever there's a traumatic event, you just remember. Maybe not all the parts, but the parts that affect you. Like you just can't even remember it. Okay, and then we have procedural memory. That's the memory of how to do something without thinking about it. That's like riding a bike. It's like driving. We just get in the car, we drive. Because that's procedural memory. We know how to do that. We just do. You know how to drive. Once you know how to drive or ride a bike, you just cannot forget it, right? So what else we have here? It's automated memory. If you see a bike, you remember how to ride it. Trauma may affect your experience riding it by changing your posture. You might feel pain. You might tense up or you might get nervous. You still know how to ride it, but there's something happening in your body. I think about triggers. Like sometimes somebody says something or does something and you just like, I don't know why I feel like this. I don't know. It's a trigger. And triggers are invitation for transformation. Invitation for investigation for transformation. Right? So anytime you're triggered, look into that because something has happened there that you might have forgotten. Okay? Something might have happened there that you might have forgotten. So we have emotional memory. We have our strongest memories when they are attached to an emotion, whether it's something pleasurable or painful. Sometimes these emotions are triggered. For example, you see a bike and when you're in a crowd, you experience a shame or embarrassment. This could be a trigger from falling off the bike in front of a crowd. And then I tie this to like speaking in large groups. There's some people I don't get up in front of a lot of people. I don't do all that talking in front of people. And it's like, so what happened? Like I want to know like what happened. What happened? And it could be this incident where somebody fell off their bike in front of a crowd and everybody was laughing. So now when they get in front of crowds, there's that memory, okay, that the crowd triggers that memory of falling off that bike. And I don't want to be shamed. I don't want to be embarrassed. So I don't even do it because of something happened 10, 20 years ago. It's just that real. And here's this statement that I heard a lot growing up, and you might have heard this too. What happens in this house? No way. What happens in this house stays in this house. What happens in this house stays in this house. What happens in this house stays in this house. There are people who have been raped, have been molested, have been assaulted, and they don't want to share. They won't share because this is what we heard growing up. What happens in this house stays in this house. And I'm going to tell you this right here. When I was working on my book, there's certain things that it triggered a lot of things. First of all, because I went back to childhood and a lot of stuff. The way we carry ourselves now, the way we are now, is related to childhood and things that happened in childhood. So as I was writing my story, it was hard. I'm gonna be honest. It was hard because I didn't want people to look a certain way. I didn't want to, I kept thinking about what goes on in this house stays in this house. So it was, I shared anyway. I shared my truth. I didn't make anybody look bad. I shared my truth. That's it. I didn't name anybody. I just shared my truth. Because that is how you heal. You don't heal by suppressing it and keeping it a secret. And what goes on in this house stays in this house. There are people now operating from things that have happened to them because they have not talked about it. And they think that experience is the truth. It's like, it's my fault. And if I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And now we're just beating ourselves up about things that happened that we had no control over. Right? As adults, we are to protect our kids. Right? And in that, when stuff happens, we tend to blame people. I'm not blaming anybody for what happened. This is my experience. And I know that when those things happen, it is And it sounds crazy, but it's for me. It happened for me to be this person I am today. Because if it wasn't for all of that stuff happening for me, there would not be a book. There would not be a coach. There would not be a woman of God. There would not be the person I am today if it wasn't for those things that happened for me. But you can't see it when you're in it. It's like, why is this happening? What's going on? Like, why? We want to know why. And when you're in it, it's hard to understand. It's hard to see why, because it just doesn't make sense. The stuff I've been through just didn't make sense then, but it does now. Like it does now. I'm able to speak to those people. I'm able to speak to the younger version of me. I'm able to coach the younger version of me. I'm able to go back and rescue me. So I embrace everything that happened for me because it made me who I am. So let's get back into this trauma. Trauma impacts your memory. We remember the sequence of events, sometimes not all the details. We can have an experience of the same event, and it can impact us differently. So in my book, I share an experience I had, and I told my parent what happened. And she was like, "Well, I don't remember you telling me that," but I told her that. I know I told her that because it was a traumatic experience for me, and I went to my safe person, my safe space, and I shared that. But a lot of times when we as parents are going through our own trauma, our own stuff, we tend to block out. We like zone out. I know there were times as a parent, I was in the home, but I was not present. I was too busy trying to be a wife before I even was a wife, trying to be in relationships, trying to fix and save people, giving the kids, y'all get these little games, y'all go in y'all room, leave me alone. Like this, that's the babysitter. I'm going to be real. There was some trauma that I passed on. Like, can we be real? Okay. I did the best I could with the information I had at the time, not beating myself up about it, but I know I did it too. That's why it's important for us to heal. It's important for us to be aware of what we're doing as well. Because if you have kids, guess what? We got to break that cycle. We got to break that generational cycle. And it starts with us. It starts with me. Okay? It stops with us. Generational trauma, generational poverty, poor emotional connections, sexual abuse. It stops with me. It stops with you. We don't want to keep on raising kids with this. It goes on in this house, stays in this house. Now things have happened to them. People have threatened their lives. Don't you tell. They've been molested and raped. Don't you tell. And now the person turns into an adult who doesn't trust other adults, not even themselves. It's real. It is real. Do you still keep secrets where only certain people you tell certain things to, like in your family? For example, you tell things to certain people. Oh, don't tell that person and don't tell this person. It's got to stop. It has got to stop. The cycle to break, that's another cycle to break as well. Emotional patterns that you need to break. Doing well on the outside. This was my story for decades. Doing well on the outside, but suffering in the inside because I didn't think it was safe to tell anybody, because I didn't trust anybody. Didn't trust anybody, not even myself. Didn't trust anybody, not even myself. Could not be alone with myself because I didn't trust myself. I didn't love myself. I didn't respect myself. Had to be in some kind of relationship until one day he sit me down with me. I had to look at me in the mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror. Because you can't fix nobody else and save nobody else. You got to do that work for you. It starts with you, not nobody else. And so emotional patterns that you need to break. Like I said, doing well on the outside, suffering on the inside. That was my story. Break every pattern, not just the things you see, but also the things that you can't see. Trauma transmit in silence. It shows up as a symptom, not the words. When we give a voice to the trauma, it's the first step to seeing it heal. This right here, this is when my healing started. When I started sharing, and I cannot stop, right? Because somebody needs my story. Somebody needs to know that you're not alone. That thing that happened to you, you're not alone, and it's not your fault. But you must find a safe person, a safe space to release that stuff. Don't hold on to it because it's holding you back. It's stopping you. Excuse me, it's stopping you. The biggest enemy was the inner me. The biggest enemy was the inner me. It wasn't nobody else. It wasn't the relationships, because I chose these people from this empty place. So I couldn't blame anybody else. I said, let me work on me. Let me look at me. Because I can't keep pointing the finger at everybody else, because when you do that, all the other things are pointing at you. So you have to do that work. The first step is awareness. And find a safe person, a safe space to release that thing, because trauma transmits in silence. Have a forward conversation. So what is that? That's having a conversation like me, having a conversation with my daughter, or having a conversation with my son. That's a forward conversation. The backward conversation is have a conversation with a parent, with the person who you had that experience with, right? But here's the caveat. Here's the caveat. You have to heal before you go try to have that conversation, because that little girl or that little boy is going to show up in that conversation ready to go to war. So you got to heal that first before you go to that person and have that conversation. That's very important. That's very important. Yes, sis. All you saying, I can relate. I'm trying to tell you, this stuff is real. And it stops us. That's why we have to break this cycle. Not no curse. We got to break this cycle. It starts with us. You got kids. It stops here. It stops here. I am not going to put this on them. I don't want them to put this on their kids and their kids and their kids. Because all this stuff is generational trauma. And the first step is awareness. Like, when you're triggered, what's going on? What happened? Let me investigate. Because it affects our memory. Certain things are coming back to me now. Like when I be riding down the road just thinking, I'll be like, man, I forgot about that. And then you know what I do? I share that story, because it's not for me. Okay, we want to be clear. Work on yourself first. We have the capacity to heal. Know that you have the capacity to heal the child in you. Okay, we have the capacity to reparent ourselves. Because maybe your parents, they don't have the tools. They don't have the capacity to give you what you need as an adult. But that doesn't mean that it stops. You can reparent yourself, and you have the capacity to heal your little girl, your little boy in you. Right? It wasn't your fault what happened to you. It wasn't your fault. As parents, we do the best we can with the information we have at that time. And new information requires a new decision. And you can go back and say, you know what, baby, I taught you that, and I thought that was the right way, but it wasn't. So let me tell you, explain. Maybe you want to share your story with them so they can understand, not just don't do this and don't do that because I said so. Explain. Go into details and explain that. Okay, so what else? And you got to do the work. You must do the work. I could never openly talk to my mom, so I try to make sure I'm present to my kids for my kids emotionally wise. Yeah, because, when I wrote this book and my mom was asking me different questions, and I was like, I told you that. And I said, and she was like, I'm so sorry. And she felt so guilty and so bad. But I let her know that I don't hate you. I love you. And I know you did the best you could with the information that you had at the time. And I know that you were experiencing trauma, because you know what? As an adult, after I wrote this book, she told me, she shared her truth with me. So I was like, I get it now. I understand now. But as a child, you don't understand it because you don't know all the details. And even if they tell you the details, you probably don't have the capacity to understand it. So yeah, that's real. Oh, it's real. We can't control what other people do or force them to give us what we need. We can't control what other people do or force them to give us what we need. We can't. Okay? We must care for ourselves as adults. Wait until you heal so you can have the conversation without the child taking the driver's seat. Wait until you heal before you have that conversation without the child taking the driver's seat. Because, honey, I'm going to tell you something. I was coaching someone. This was a man about my father's age. And I had some hurt and anger with my daddy. Can I be real? And I'm coaching this person. I went to my little girl got so pissed off with him, what he was saying. I was like, so what about your daughter? Like, you should have seen me neck. I'm like, what? And I realized that my little girl had the driver's seat. I had to correct that thing. I was like, girl, no, we can't do this right now. We're going to go talk to somebody after this, but we can't do this right now. Because you know what I realized? I was talking to a little boy, not the grown man, not my daddy. I was talking to a little boy, the little boy in him. He was told this story as a child, and he was operating from what his dad told him. His dad told him some information that somebody probably told him. Wasn't the best information, wasn't productive at all, wasn't logical, but if it was for him, it's what he was told. And we hear these things, we even see these things, and we operate from this place, thinking it's okay. And it wasn't, right? So I gained control back of the wheel. The adult got control back of the wheel. Said, you know what? I understand. And that was it. So you know what? After that, me and him, we talked about other things. But he went and he got the help that he needed. He got counseling. He got, I think he was suffering with depression. So he got the help that he needed. Like, I helped him to the capacity I could, like what I had in me. Outside of that, it's like, okay, it's out of my hands. And he came back later and he thanked me. So that's why it's so important for us to do the work. And sometimes you think you're done, you finish, and all of a sudden it'd be like it slapped me in the face. I was like, girl, okay, we're doing this. All right, so let me go get some support in this. So I can heal that, so I can give that a voice. I can let her know that everybody ain't him, right? Because I was doing that in relationships, looking for that fulfillment that I could never find outside of me. It was always in me, but I was looking for that outside of me. So that's a whole nother story. Trauma can change us. We can heal by giving voice to the trauma, by having safe conversations. And this will have a healing effect. Give voice to what you have survived. Give voice to what you have survived. Yes, sis. I have more healing to do too. I'm healed and I'm healing. I'm healed and I'm healing. There's some areas I'm like, okay, I'm good. And there's some areas I thought I was good in, I'm not. So that's why it's so important to get the support, to get the help that you need. Because sometimes we can't do this stuff by ourselves. But in order to heal, we must understand it. In order to heal it, you got to understand it. Some books that were shared, and this was a podcast I listened to. I just took notes, and I'm just giving you the way I received it. And so it hit home for me because this is real, and people don't really talk about generational trauma or generational curses. I don't like to call them curses. I think it's trauma. It's trauma, and it stops with us. Just because it didn't start with us, but it's going to stop with us. Okay, now that we have the information, we have the knowledge, we have the awareness. Now that I planted this seed, what you're going to see is, you're going to start seeing this. Why am I triggered? What's going on? What happened here? And I invite you to just write journal about the things that come up for you. And have a safe conversation when you're ready. When you're ready, have a safe conversation with a safe person when you're ready. But it all starts with us. That we heal by talking about it, right? So if you're not ready to talk about it, then don't. But if you are, find a safe a safe person, a safe place. Okay, so the name of this is the In the Light podcast by Dr. Anita Phillips. She's a pastor and a therapist. Girl, she blows my mind. She blows my mind. I'm telling you, it's called In the Light podcast. And I was listening to it. And the title of it was Overcoming Generational Trauma. That was the title of it. So I listened to that, and it was like, ooh, and she was sharing a story with her and her mom, with having a conversation. And then you can listen for the different types of trauma when you hear them have the conversation. And now, like I said, going forward, you're gonna see this stuff. You're gonna hear it, and you're gonna be like, ooh. And so I also, if you Google everything on Google, y'all. If you go on Google, You can print out those different words I was sharing with y'all, and it gives you to break down the definition of it. I like to know the definition of words, so I know what I'm talking about. So, traumatic memories, and then we have somatic memory, episodic memory, long-term memory. That's called procedural memory. And so if you print this stuff out, like I said, listen to that podcast, honey. You're going to probably hear something that I ain't even said, right? You're going to hear something differently, because we can listen to the same thing and get something different from it. But that really just gave me so much insight on, because I want to understand. Like, I'm literally going to school to be a counselor starting next year. And I love understanding how people operate, why they do what they do, and what's going on there. Because a lot of times you think it's the person that's doing this, and it's their trauma. It's their belief that has been created from an experience. It's not really who they are, right? The stuff I was doing, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was my trauma. It was my old belief. My limiting beliefs was stopping me. You're welcome. My limiting beliefs was stopping me. And so I listen to things that help me in the areas I need help in. That's what I do. And then after that, there was a word that came on. Yesterday, I listened to it. I ain't even going today. That's a whole nother 30 minutes. And it is called The Dark Room. So this is a pastor, Jerry Flowers. He was talking about childhood trauma. So I was like, woo, this stuff right here. He gives you, listen. Anyway, I can't go into that. It's just stuff that whatever keeps coming up for me that's being repeated, this is what I share. This is what I talk about. Because it's real. And I know that I keep hearing it for a reason. Yes, Pastor Block, like when he breaks that thing down, and he loves talking about relationships, and I love Therapy Thursdays. So I'm always on there because that's my area. I'm a transformational coach, but I specify in relationships because that's what brought me to coaching. It's like I was in my own way, right? I didn't love myself, didn't respect myself, and then I was attracting other people the same, right? And wonder why nothing never worked. I had to deal with the root. In order to change the fruit, you got to deal with the root. So I had to deal with the root. And if this conversation triggered you, if you want to continue this conversation, if you want to have a conversation with a safe person, I consider myself a safe person. And you can reach out to me and we can have a conversation. It don't cost you anything. You want to release this stuff, you want to talk about it, I'm here to support you in whatever way I can. So just, that's a seed I want to plant whenever you're ready. No pressure. Yeah. So I feel complete. I wanted to share this because sharing is caring. And I want people to thrive, not just survive. We gotta, that stuff that we holding on to, we have to find a safe person, safe place to release that stuff, to heal it, so we can be better parents, better sisters, better mothers, better daughters, right? Don't beat your parents up. They did the best they could with the information they had at the time. I know, because I'm a parent. Yes, I'm just starting to love myself. We're learning how to love myself. Fine. Yeah, listen, 44 some years. I was like 40 some years old before I realized. So I learned how to love myself because I did not know. I thought loving myself was taking care of everybody else and rescuing everybody else. I thought that was what love was. Saving everybody else, being there for everybody else. And I kept leaving me. So there's this word that I use, this phrase I use. I was pouring myself into everybody. When they left, I left too. I was pouring myself into relationships, into people. And when they left, I left too. I felt incomplete because I did not know who I was. And so I attached my identity to them. And when they left, I felt like I left too. Honey, I got sick and tired of me. I was like, ooh, girl, we got to do something different because this ain't working. This ain't working. And I want to share something with y'all. This has nothing to do with what I just was talking about, but I want to share because I just do. So I applied for a job and the interview was amazing. I knew you just have an interview and it went so well. You just know you got the job. So I knew I had the job. I just knew it. So I was playing the story in my head. I got to tell the people that I work with because I know what I am to them. I know what I bring to the table. I know I'm a light. And wherever I go, I make an impact. And so I was like, oh, I got to let them know I'm leaving. They're going to be mad. They're going to be upset. I'm thinking about them. I just received a promotion. I get to work from home, y'all. I'm on salary, y'all. Listen, I'm worrying about somebody else. What they gonna think? How they gonna feel? Are they gonna be okay with it? They gonna be mad? They gonna be upset? What? I got coaching. I had to get coaching with that. As she asking me these questions, I said, you know what? It's not about them, how they feel. It's about me doing what's best for me and the other people I'm going to impact. I don't think about just a job. It's a place for me to go to meet and have an impact on others. So I shared when I listened. The lady called me and she did like a video chat and telling me the information, like giving me the news. And I turned around. My boss sits right behind me. She was like, I said, well, I got a new job. She's like, oh, I'm happy and sad at the same time. So it went better than I thought it was. A lot of stuff we create and don't even exist. So I wanted to share that. Wanted to share that experience with you. Because we tend to get in our own way. We tend to get in our own way. And I want you to know that you are your own rescue. Okay? You're your own rescue. It's time to get out of your way. It's time for you to say yes to you. It's time for you to say yes to you. As a result of my transformational results coaching program, you become unrecognizable. You uncover the roadblocks. You uncover those limiting beliefs. You reframe those limiting beliefs. You uncover the you that you did not know exist. And I know that for certain because it happened to me. The day I met myself. The day I met myself. The day I found myself. Didn't know who I was. Because I let everybody else tell me who I was. Is that you? Is that you? Contact me. I'm here to support you in whatever way I can. It's time you get out of your own way. And it's time that you say yes to you. Say yes to everybody else. It's time that you say yes to you. Who do you know? Listen, I'm complete for real this time. Have an amazing Saturday on purpose. Stay in peace and not pieces. Get the help that you need. Find a safe person, a safe place to release that stuff. Because talking about it is the first step to healing. You got to let it out of the dark room so it can develop. And that picture you can share with other people and show them, I survived this and so will you. You're welcome. You're welcome. And that's from my heart to your heart. I hope you can receive it. Okay? Have an amazing Saturday on purpose. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. I love it. And thanks for the people that are going to come watch later. Thank you as well. Have an amazing day. Bye, Facebook. And bye, TikTok. Have a blessed day. Uh-oh. Here we go. In. Somebody was trying to you got more views than 90% of the hosts for the Super Bowl.